This video we're gonna be putting in this tankless water heater. Looks like that right there. So yeah, this is a propane. It's an indoor tankless water heater. You just vent it with PVC, so it's a little easier to vent. Of course, you gotta have 120 power ran to it. We're gonna probably run a wire, mount a plug to plug it into. You know, you gotta hook our water to it, run our gas line to it, and all that stuff. Run our vent. This is some of the specs on it here. As you can see, liquid propane, 199,900, basically almost 200,000 BTU. This is up to 4 bathrooms, and it runs up to 9.5 gallons per minute, but that's the one I picked, 9.5, because, so when I picked it out, I picked the Rheem because they're a little cheaper than Rheem, and I figured, and Rheem also didn't have a 9.5 gallon per minute water heater. And if Rheem can make an AC system that works great, then I'm sure they can make a water heater. They had the one I was looking for, 9.5 GPM. So sure, you can look up how many GPM does a shower use, or basically all your appliances like your dishwasher, your shower, sink, washing machine. If you use warm water, and if you run 2 or 3 at a time, let's say 2 people's in the bath 2 times, and you're running the dishwasher or whatever, sure, you can calculate that up and figure out what you want. But also, you got to take into account your groundwater temperature, like the rise of temperature, say in the wintertime, what your ground temperature is. So your water coming through from your water meter to your house, what the ground temperature is, and how many degrees rise it has to come up to get it to the temperature you want it. That GPM, all that factors into the GPM also. So we ended up with a 9.5. It should be plenty. That's what we're going to work on getting installed today. So first things first, we're going to unbox it and see what all we got here, and mount the actual water heater itself on the block. I say block because we're going to mount it under the house, up against the outside wall over here on the inside of the block. On the foundation down there. We're gonna mount it there and then pipe, because all of our water lines run somewhere right here from one end to the house to the other. The only thing water line runs to on this side of the house is in the laundry room in there, and that's it. Everything else runs straight down this part of the house. So we're gonna mount it over here and run everything to that. We have to vent it. So we're gonna get started on that. All right, here's the water heater itself. Got your cord for your power, and your gas inlet, cold inlet, hot inlet, and it even tells you down there. Then your drain. So the only thing we don't have is the condensate neutralizer, which is this part right here. It comes on the drain. It's condensate neutralizer. We got PVC for the vent, like right up here. You have your exhaust and then your air intake, and those are long sweep 90s. We got some short sweep 90s because for room, just a little bit, it takes up a little less room under the house. We only got so much to work with. But y'all see that in a second. But that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna try to get it mounted today, get the vents put out through the block, and get the hot and cold. And we had to get a couple of valves and fittings and stuff too, but we get the hot and cold hooked up, and then we'll come back later and we'll run our gas line to it, and the drain, and do the condensate neutralizer. I'm gonna look, see if we even need that. Probably will. We'll just see. And of course, it's got Wi-Fi capabilities, and you can hook to it and change your temperature and all that stuff without even crawling under the house. You can set it on your phone, I'm thinking, but I'm not worried about all that. I may not ever even do that. So anyway, let's get started. PEX nipple for the cold side, and that's the blow off valve, pop off valve, what I meant, same thing.
And then you put this piece on there like that, screwed on there.
Oh, like a cover plate.
Right, and that's it like that. The exhaust comes out right there, and then your air sucks in around that.
Around that, yeah. Yeah.
I got my leg.
Oh, I'm already right here on. Is it? We got her mounted up here. I ain't been filming none because you wouldn't have been able to see with us in the way, but we got our hole in the block here and we had the glue. We cut these the right length coming out into the 90, just enough to go in there. And then same thing, we measured the distance to run through the wall and glue them in because they stick into the outside piece. And this thing is heavy. We had to hold it up there and screw it in, but we had to dig out some down here. But because we had to dig out and going through the wall out there is going to be a problem. This here is the pop off. It don't matter if it goes up because it's going to be pressurized. It's just going to blow out. And then this here is where your hot line ties in and you got your cold line over there. That's what we got going so far. So now we got the cover put on there. There's long ones and short ones, and it took the short ones. And as you can see, that's the exhaust side. This is the intake side. It just brings air from in here straight in. And what we got here, the pop-off valve, we're gonna just come outside. And I'll get into the ideal situation from in there in just a second, show you what I'm talking about. But for right now, that's where it's gonna come out. And over here somewhere, we're gonna come out with a condensate drain. And I'll explain that more in just a second from the inside too. Got a little water in it, don't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. You go get it.
You gotta give him that huck too and spit on that thing, you get me?
So we're starting on the gas piping. Of course, run out through this wall, put our fitting to go to the tank. Running up through here. We're hanging it with this band strap like we did on the plumbing. Now the tankless heater here, we had to hard pipe it in. But the rest of it we're gonna run down and come off of a copper line just to the stove and to the fireplace. So it'd be easier, but this one had the regulator. We'll get into some more of that in a minute, but had the regulator and had to come over and go down to it. But this duct work's kind of in the way of doing any video, so I didn't get no more of that. But we'll get some going down through there. We'll come off the supply side. There's a drip leg coming off here at the lowest point because sometimes this black pipe will rust a little bit over time, and some go down in there to catch the rust before it goes in the appliance. But right there you can see drip leg on the bottom. And fittings we're using the 90s, and we got unions right there, and T's. It's pretty much all we using other than the flare fitting on the outside. It's 3/4 inch black pipe, and we hard piped it in instead of copper because we need 3/4 inch supply on that. We didn't have no 3/4 inch copper, did we? If we didn't have no copper, it's 3/4. We just got half, so we can go half to the stove and the fireplace. We couldn't run that here. Well, This is where my stove's gonna go here. Of course, we got a plug for the clock to run the clock and on. Also got a plug just in case we end up going electric later down the road or something, but we're running gas stove for now. So we just drilled a hole through, stuck something down so we can see underneath the house. You come run. And we're gonna run copper line from the main pipe down there over through the floor. So we'll get into that here in a second. Right there on the side of the joist we come out was for the stove. And we're putting our regulators on right before, you know, got a shut off valve and then the regulator and then go to each appliance. But right here we gotta come out, measure over here where he's at for that. So we got 64 inches from here over there.
Boy, that's gonna throw my regulator right straight up under my dang.
Plumbing.
Yep. Well, you tighten it up with a crescent wrench.
Yeah, I get it. Pull it this way so we.
Flathead on the top, but down in there, that's a.
You make it get in between there. And that other one's gonna be the same as this, right? For the
Yeah.
fireplace.
Exact same thing, except it's a 3/8 fitting instead of half.
One thing I forgot to mention on the fittings earlier was caps for the drip leg. I didn't mention that. And then we had to have one reducer down here on the water heater was all 3/4, but the stove had a 3/4 to half T, so we didn't need a reducer. And then this one we had to have a reducer on. And of course, difference in half and 3/4 different fittings for that, nipples. And then a flare fitting, I didn't mention flare fittings. Got a flare fitting here, one on the very other end down there that goes to the gas tank. And then we're gonna have to put, one for the stove, and then we're putting these flare nuts on here with this flare tool. PT cleans the end out with his knife after he cuts it to get in. I guess it kind of restricts the flow in there a little bit when you cut it.
It's where you cut it with a tubing cutter that rolled it down in there a little bit. So, and it has a thing on the tubing cutters to do this with, but my knife's a little sharper and it works better.
Flare tool, and he always checks for cracks. Make sure when it flares it out, it don't leave no cracks in where it flared. I don't see no cracks in it. And of course, you know it, and the flare goes on there. And we had enough line where we stuck a bunch down through the hole during the fireplace. We had enough line, so we just bolted it over here and connected into the end of this pipe. It's the same way as the water heater is a little different because it had the drip leg at the bottom, but for the stove it's the same way as this one. Had the drip leg before we 9 it over, or when we 9 it over, had the drip leg, shut off valve, regulator, and then we're gonna go from the regulator on. We got another one of these flare nut fittings to go on the regulator for the stove, and we'll put it on, so we'll get that in some video. But that's just the setup we're going with here. I'm gonna put another metal strap right here to hold this end of this pipe up, and then he's gonna use the nylon strap like we use for the duct work on this copper line just to hold it. Might have to wall that hole out a little bit. Go where the come through the floor. It's been a little bit of an angle in it. Come tie in right here. All right, so we got to run this wire. We just run the wire to the box, put the breaker in. We got to put the plug in. We got all the piping in here done. So the pop-out, ideally, like if you put it inside the house, you run your drain here to your main drain under the house, put a condensate neutralizer to neutralize the pH balance for your septic tank or whatever. But we just vented it out, run it outside, and we didn't want to drop down too much with fittings, so we just put a shark bite fitting on there. We threaded it on one side, and then just threaded on one side, and then the other side where the PEX is, it just shark bite. Just push it up in there and it holds it in and run through the block with that. Over here for the pop-off valve, because of the fittings and whatnot, we couldn't go out here because it's a little bit under the dirt. So we had to come up and go out the block here, but if it ever pops off, it's pressurized, so it'll just blow out. And whatever's left in there will evaporate because that end's open. And if it don't, you know, it's fine, whatever. But on the drain, we don't need it backing up. So we need to keep it up as close to the fitting as possible and go straight out of the wall so we had enough to drain out. So that's why we did that. And I'll show you the outside where they come out. But got to put the wire, the switch, the plug in here for it. Because this just plugs in, we'll plug it in and we'll zip tie up the slack so it'll stay out of the way. You know, ideally you would have had that just come down and out, but we couldn't do that. So we went up. I don't like rigging stuff up where it's gonna cause trouble later, but as long as sometimes you have to improvise, and as long as it's good quality work and it's gonna be just fine, then for long term, then I'm okay with it. And that's how that turned out. But
All right, putting the outlet in for it. All right, putting the outlet in for the water heater. All done. Somebody bumped the breaker and got my lights off under here.
so there's the finished product of the drain here. That's the pop off, that's the drain. We just stuck a 90 on the end of them and crimped them on facing down, just so when I'm cutting grass in the yard out here, it's not throwing grass in there and stopping the end of it up. So that's good to go. Got our fitting here, flared fitting. So took the hammer drill, knocked a chunk out of the block on the inside and drilled through right here, and where we run our pipe through, and threaded this on. And then from here, which we'll get into that later, we're gonna go down under the ground with copper line to the tank here. You know, we're just running this black pipe down the house. We got a gas line dug under here. Just took a shovel, dug a trench all the way to the line here. It wasn't that far to the tank here. It wasn't that far. Installed our flare fittings and tightened it up on there. We had to run the line under the tank and come up on this other side because the way the gas company set the tank, the regulator's on this side, and we're like hooked up like that. So and then the gas company pressure tested it. We had no leaks at all, so that was good to go. Good to go there. The only other thing, we have to do for this is to set up the temperature and all that. Now, I know the book gives the instructions on it. Really, you turn it on and you get your temperature set. Now here, these knobs you saw on the front of it earlier, you go up and down, that sets your temperature. Notice 120 degrees Fahrenheit. And it's got Wi-Fi. You can hook to your phone, download the app, and you can change the temperature from your phone, which I'm not going to do that. I'll just set it and leave it. But I think it also tells you maybe when you need to do some maintenance on it. I think it maybe has sensors in there, tells you when it should be cleaned from mineral buildup or whatever. I don't know. I'll look through the book and see about that. And of course, it's got different locations you can do it, vent it through the roof and all that stuff. I didn't want to do that. So the way we did it, you know, on the bottom side and vented it out. And then of course it has some different specs here that apparently has a leak detection, 15-year warranty, 5-year limited parts, 1-year labor, and then I guess. So as you can see here, it's on, it's working. We got the temperature set on 125. Just want to give you a shot of that. So we have hot water now to the back here. And as you can see, we have a whole lot of other work done here that we've gotten done before I posted this video. But so basically what we did, first things first, we turned the cold on, let it run for a while, get all the air bled out, turn the hot on, got it bled out. Because obviously you don't want any air in your heater because it could cause it to, you know, burn up and whatnot. And then we bled the gas. So we just cracked the gas. You know, it stunk in here for a little bit from propane, but we cracked it, let it bleed out and all that whatnot. Plugged it up. I didn't get it on video because Dad had got up here and got started before I got here. But plugged it up, turned it on, got it set and all that. And of course you can see in the picture here, in like the thumbnail, you just set it. So the water's hot. And it's hot enough you don't want to keep your finger under there too long. I was wondering if it's going to show some steam on the video, but it don't. But anyway, we got hot water now. It all works great. I have no problems. So I have no issues with the Rheem water heater we used, and it works great. We don't run out of hot water for anything. And, you know, 2 people showering at one time, all that stuff, dishwasher going. So it worked out great. So I'm going to end that video here, and I hope y'all enjoyed that one.